it seems like a long and lonely night. I'll wait for you. Oh, it seems like a long and lonely night. You will wait for me. Oh, I wonder, my spirit of friends. But now I'm happy, secure my rest. From morning to evening, glad carols I sing. And this is the reason I walk with the King. I walk with the King, Meherazad. I walk with the King, praise His name. No longer I roam, my soul faces home. I walk and talk with the King. For years in fetters of sin I once bound. The world could not help me, no comfort I found. But now like the birds from the sunbeams of spring, I'm free and rejoicing. I walk with the King. I walk with the King, Meherazad. I walk with the King, praise His name. No longer I roam, my soul faces home. I walk and talk with the King. Oh, so near despair, in the lowlands of strife, look out and let Baba come into your life. The joy of His love to you He will bring. Come into the sunlight and walk with the King. I walk with the King, Meherazad. I walk with the King, praise His name. No longer I roam, my soul faces home. I walk and talk with the King. I walk and talk with the King.
In the first chapter, the first paragraph of Goher's book, which hopefully will be coming out in the next year, I think she sums up her life with Meher Baba. She writes, Baba told us, I came to suffer. As God, Meher Baba had nothing to gain for himself from the suffering that he took on. He suffered for the entire universe, for every soul in it, to help the saint and the criminal, as well as the fish and the insect. There's no one and nothing on whose behalf Baba did not suffer. From the time I came to stay with Meher Baba as his doctor, I can only say that my life was helplessness in the face of his suffering. I'd like to read out what was sent from the Meherazad family and the whole Ahmednagar family to the world when Goher left her physical form. Avatar Meher Baba took his precious Goher Irani into his warm embrace on June 30th, 2004 at 12:40 and 15 seconds p.m. in Meherazad. She was always very precise. Goher passed away due to congestive heart failure. She was 87 years old. Cremation will be at Meherabad on July 1st at 10 a.m. By Baba's order. Her ashes are to be interred on Meherabad Hill by the side of Baba's Samadhi. Goher means jewel, and the quality of Goher's unique service to her beloved master has been a shining inspiration to all who came to know her. Both disciple and doctor, she brought to life Baba's precept of selfless service. As Baba's personal physician, she cared for him with total dedication, night and day, as well as tending to his beloved Mera and the resident Mandali. How fortunate she was to have lived with Baba and served him to the very end. In more recent times, Goher reached out with great love, kindness, warmth, and compassion to all who came into her contact. This naturally included not only the Baba family, but also the local villagers, who she lovingly cared for through the Meherazad dispensary for over 30 years. In dearest Goher's life of love and service, and in the countless number of hearts she touched, beloved Baba has given his lovers a sublime example to cherish. His jewel will be sorely missed. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai, Meru, Katie, Arnavaz, and Meherazad family. And then I'd like to share this beautiful eulogy that Rick and Cheryl Chapman have written about Goher. Dr. Goher Irani, Baba's doctor. No one on earth had softer hands or a gentler heart than Goher, except, of course, her beloved master, Meher Baba, for whom she lived. Goher was a disciple in the truest sense of the word, one who lived only to love and serve Baba, and who could never attach any importance to herself, however hard anyone else might try. Her great humility lay in her inability to see her own greatness. Goher came to Meher Baba as a child, lived with him throughout her life, traveled with him as one of a most remarkable handful of new life companions, and lived out her life as one of his intimate Meherazad resident Mandali. Throughout it all, for most of her adult life, she served as personal doctor to the person of God and his most beloved one, Mera, as well as to his sister Mani and the other Mandali, and more. Baba also had her serve the world, whether the impoverished villagers of the nearby community who came to her Meherazad clinic, or the innumerable lovers of Meher Baba, Eastern and Western, on pilgrimage in India, all whom she touched, found her attention and ministrations uniquely healing, inexplicably reassuring, a powerful, disarming, and direct reflection of the grace of the one who had given her this calling. Meher Baba made his dear disciple Goher a doctor in the truest sense, an example of healing, rooted in love and care, that will serve as a model for the real medicine of the future. Oh, Goher, our great friend, how we will miss you. Your love and support have been a constant lifeline to Meherazad, but now our memories of you will be a new lifeline to the beloved, with whom you now reside. We rejoice in your lovely union with beloved Baba and with dearest Mera and Mani, who were your life, and we thank Baba for his grace in sharing so much of that most wonderful life with us. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai, Cheryl and Rita. What we're hoping to do today is to remember Goher, and we hope that everyone will share stories of their experiences with her, because she did touch so many people, and most of the stories we haven't even begun to hear. While she was sick, we received some emails from people who shared some of their stories with us. And I'd like to share a few with you now before we open the floor to everyone else sharing. This was from Louise Trask, and she writes, "Dear Goher, maybe you remember me from long, long ago. I always remember you and how sweetly and bravely you rode in a hot and bumpy rickshaw to Vilu's to tend to me one day. I was sick and delirious with a fever. When I woke up and saw you there, I asked if you were an angel. You sat by my bed and gave me one spoonful of water every 15 minutes. How kind you were to a poor little girl, too stupid to know how to take care of herself. I still remember the touch of your cool, soft hand on my head. You are an angel, and it makes me sad to think that you are not well. I send you my love all the way to Meherazad. I wish I could take care of you the way you have taken care of so many of us. Love and our darling Baba, Louise Trask." And another example of how tenderly Goher would care for each one. This is from Jen Wujia, an experience that she had. "Darling Dr. Goher, on my first visit to Meherazad in 1979, I had no idea who Meher Baba was. I only knew that he was the friend I'd been looking for since childhood. One day I had a very intense experience of realizing who Baba was up on Seclusion Hill. I remember being brought down from the hill in a daze. One thing that stands out so clearly in my memory is you riding your bicycle over to the then clinic, me being brought into you, and you stroking my face so lovingly. I will never forget your soft and totally understanding touch. I was very distressed from my experience on the hill, and I remember you being so understanding that I was going through something, and you were just being so very loving and gentle. I was overwhelmed by the softness of your hands as you stroked my face. You said several times, 'Baba is melting your heart.' I will remember this time with you always. Years later, I got to sit with you on the veranda in 1999. You weren't feeling great that day. I remember I got to hold your hand and listen to you and comfort you. We will always be sisters. I love you very much. And our beloved Baba, Jen Wujia." And then the last one I would like to share is from Kristen Crawford, who has spent time as a resident in Meherazad and had the opportunity to care for Goher. And I feel she describes her so perfectly and beautifully. "Dearest Goher, I'm constantly thinking of you, and if Baba did not have me completely shackled here right now, I would be there now with you. What keeps welling up in my heart is the awareness of Baba's compassion for letting me know you. Thank you, Goher dear, for all you've given me, for all the precious time with you in Baba's home, for every beautiful moment with you, for every small chance to do the slightest thing to help you, for which your spontaneous appreciation always seems so disproportionate to the task, for all your concern, for me always, for your overwhelming kindness. The list, were I really to enumerate it, would be much too long. But I have to mention that I have especially loved being in Baba's room with you, when you would choose the flowers to offer him in the evening, and when I was allowed to help you get around, feeling the softness of the hands that cared for Baba. I've always loved being near you, because Baba's love in you is so radiant. I've always marveled at your extreme loving and incisive attention to everyone, and to the most minute detail of life at Meherazad, all in service of your beloved. I'm sorry to say that many of what for me have been great privileges have come about as a result of the increasing helplessness and ailments Baba has put upon you, which you have so patiently endured for so long now. May Baba spare his dear doctor any additional suffering now, or at least, if suffering there must be, may he drown it out with the joy of his presence in you and around you. Thank you again, dearest Goher, for playing your role for Baba so exquisitely, and being the living testimony to his greatness and compassion. For the treasure of knowing you his treasure. I can only bow my head to him. There's a couple of amazing stories that happened towards the end of Gohar's life that we'd like to share with you. And one of them has to do with the song Amazing Grace. It was some months before she went to Baba that she became intrigued and a little bit obsessed with the song Amazing Grace. And part of that stemmed from the story behind the song. The man who wrote it was a slave trader. And he had a complete turnaround, a total spiritual upheaval. And he forsook his life as a slave trader and became a great lover of God. And in that, he wrote this beautiful song. And it was during the summer, so there were only a few of us here. And she started asking one by one, do you know the words? Do you remember the words? And finally, she had Dana Ferry, who was sitting here, sing the song. And then she had Dana find the words. I think Dana went on the internet. And somebody got the words printed for her because there's a computer printout of the words Amazing Grace. And she carried it with her. It was folded up. It was near her eyeglasses, which she always kept by her side wherever she sat. And then when we went to Pune for our break, she got up one day and I was kind of making up her bed, and I found underneath her pillow this copy of Amazing Grace, the words to Amazing Grace folded. So she was sleeping with it. That's how connected she felt to this song. And then she had Ted come to Pune and sing the song for her. And he sang several songs. It was a really beautiful time because he sang songs in her presence, and you could tell she was going back to the early days with Baba. Despite how ill she was, despite how distracted she was by her physical condition, with every song, she would fold her hands and say, thank you, Ted, that was so beautiful. So we thought we'd like to share Ted singing Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fear relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. 'Twas mine, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Twas grace that brought me safe this far, and grace will lead me home. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound and sing a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been here 10,000 years, bright and shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved.
One more story I'll share before I turn this over to everyone here. Last November, Sally Pearson was here visiting. And for those of you who don't know Sally, she and her husband Patrick are dancers. And Goher was very fond of both of them and really loved to see them both dance, and Patrick hadn't been here in some time. So Goher said to Sally, "Tell Patrick I want to see him dance one more time before I die." Which of course
Can I
was
just say something?
huge responsibility.
I want to set the record straight. I don't know what happened in November, but this is something that happened actually at the very end of my first visit here in 1990. And I came up to say goodbye to Goher, for whose softness I've always had a soft spot in my heart. And that's when she said it. I'd like to see her dance again before I die. So then I didn't know what to do. When am I going to go back? You know, because I don't want to be responsible. But she had seen me dance several times more since then.
Okay.
So anyway, so I don't know what happened in November.
So anyway, when Goher, it was obvious that Goher was critically ill, and Sally and I speak on the phone, you know, not infrequently, and she had just finished a tour. She and Patrick had just finished a tour in Japan, and she called me up, and I was explaining to her what was happening with Goher, and she could feel the immediacy of the need to come. But she'd just gotten off the airplane, and traveling is not easy for her, and she was jet-lagged and feeling really bad. Oh, I want to come, but, you know, I'll miss her, or I feel too unwell, and I probably wouldn't be any help, and, you know, on and on. So I thought, okay, well, you know, she has to do what she has to do. I wasn't going to say anything to anybody. Anyone who was going to come, that was between them and Baba. So she gave me this whole long explanation about why she couldn't come. And then the very next day I get a phone call from her, and she said, "We have tickets. We're on our way." So they arrived, what day did you leave?
Sunday.
2 weeks
2 weeks ago today. They arrived 2 weeks ago today, and they came out right away to see her. At that point in time, she was transiting again. She kept having these physical transits where she would decline, you know, rapidly. And so she was just in another transit, so they came right out to greet her, and then came back the next day to dance for her. And dancing meant it was in Mare and Money's room. Goher was in Money's bed at the end. And her head was at the foot end of the bed, and she was propped up. We had her propped up to about a 45-degree angle. She was on her side. And so she could see directly in front of her and a little bit to the side, but she didn't move her head much. So there was this little bit of space between Money's bed and Mary's bed. And the challenge was to do the dance for Patrick without touching Mary's bed, because men shouldn't touch Mary's bed. And she did. He accomplished this amazing feat. And in the middle of the dance, I was facing them because I wanted to photograph. Everyone else was behind Goher watching Patrick, and I was watching them watch Patrick and watching her watch Patrick. And in the middle of the dance, she's all covered up, and this little hand comes out of the covers, reaching up towards Patrick. And Patrick sees it, and he reaches down and he takes her hand, and he dances with her, as if she's his partner. He takes her hand, and it was just so beautiful. She was so happy. So we thought that Patrick would like to share a little bit of that dance with you all.
The most intimidating place in the world is the book. And I don't know what the deal is, I have no clue. And if you don't either,
We'll just close our eyes.
Okay.
Peter Pan said the same thing. Peter Pan and the Who said the same thing.
Dr. Goher was really responsible for getting me to come to live here. I was massaging her when she had a lot of pain in her arms, and she said, "You would be very useful here." And I had been wondering how I could find some place to live when I went back to America that was so beautiful and had all these things in Meherazad that I was in love with. And then she said, "Well, then just come live here." So she told me how to do it, and it all worked perfectly smoothly. And then one day she said, "Is everything in place for you to come back?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Are you concerned about anything?" I said, "Yes, my mother. I know she's going to miss me and be very disappointed that I'm living so far away, and I don't know how I'm going to deal with that." And she said, "Oh, well, the same thing happened to me, you know. When I was coming to live with Baba, my mother had headaches and she was very sad. She didn't want me to come. And I went to Baba and I told Baba the whole thing and said, 'Baba, what can I do? What should I do?' And he said, 'Well, I guess you'll just have to decide, won't you?'" And as soon as Dr. Goher told me that, all my concerns just dissolved. And I said, "Gosh, if Dr. Goher would have that same problem as I did, and Baba gave her that answer, then it's my answer too." So I just had to make that decision. And So I was like eternally grateful for the way Goher made it so easy for me to have this dream of being here. So,
In my association with Goher, I always felt I was like the dumb student who believes she is qualified but keeps realizing she didn't quite get the point. And this past week, many memories came. I realized how much she's taught me. And she didn't give discourses or talk very much. She really led by example. And I really didn't know much when I came here. And I remember sitting with her in the dispensary, and we'd be at the same desk. Actually, there were 3 doctors, there were 3 of us on the same desk. So I was really sitting next to her, and each doctor was seeing a patient in each corner. And the moment I needed to ask her a question, I would turn and she had disappeared. And I kept thinking, what is she doing? I mean, she's supposed to be here in the dispensary seeing patients. Why? I mean, it was like a joke. Every time I had a question, she vanished. And it took me quite a while to realize that she kept going back to the house, on a little bicycle. Because even when she was treating patients in the dispensary, her mind was always on Mera. What is Mera doing? Is Mera ready for breakfast? Is Mera eating enough? And it took me a while to realize, what the priorities were. And another little story that showed how she, would stretch my selfishness and all that. Once when I was again new here, I came across that quote from Baba about to be a good doctor. It was on the back of a Glow magazine, so I bought the magazine and cut the cover. There was no Xerox or computer printing at the time. And took it to town and got it framed. And I asked Goher's permission and I placed it in the dispensary. And maybe a few months later, I come in the dispensary and quote is no longer on the wall. I said, Goher, what happened? Where is it? He said, oh, I gave it to a pilgrim. I said, how could you do that? It wasn't mine. And, she just gave me one look. And she had this, she didn't need to give big explanations. She would just give me one look. And I knew, there was no arguing. I knew again that I'd been taught a lesson without words. That if she felt the pilgrim needed it, he would go.
I was the youngest, but then a lot was put on me that sometimes I couldn't quite deal with it myself. And I would wait for, especially in the new life, I would always go and refer to Goher when she would come back from the men's side or wherever she was needed, And I said, Goher, what about this or what about that? And she says, come, I'll help you and do it with you. And one of the things was I was going through that time, tummy problems and backache and all that. And it didn't matter what it was, but if Baba wanted something, we always did it. Now, one of the things was, we walked through that, but when we were in Benares, I remember that we had to get the water was down below, there was no pressure to push it out. So we had some of the water, someone sort of filled up a chatty over there. But I couldn't use that. When Baba wanted a bath, I wanted to get fresh water from the running tap. So from down below, I'd heat the water and also fill up the cold water because he wouldn't wait. When he said bath, you had to be immediate and just get everything for me. So, and the steps were not shallow steps. We had to sort of really lift yourself and go up and then walking with the pails and all. At that time, it was a little strenuous for me. So she would say, come on, I'll help you. And we would both bring up the hot water, having first fill the cold water. tray and kept a little space for hot water. And she was always there when I needed her. I mean, I would never ask her for anything unless I really needed her. And I couldn't go to her money for it. So it was always her I had to ask. Very grateful for it. She was like the watchdog of that area before you went into that realm or whatever. And they had to pass her by, the hobbits. And they were tiny people, and the Sherlock was a big, fat spider. And even as we're reading it, and the description of her, you're thinking, oh, that girl is not here. And just as we finished that, she had been punctured by the elves, that the hobbits had this elves knife. That was the only thing that fight against her. And all this black, gooey stuff and all comes out of her. And it's a really horrible description. And Goher comes in, after it's finished. And Baba, although sometimes you think he's listening or not listening, he's lying in bed. And maybe someone was massaging him, or maybe he was just lying there. And he said, Goher, you weren't here in time, you should have been here to listen to all this. And it showed that Baba's humor in all this. And we were in Mount Abu. We had walked very far to this furthest part, which beyond it was the end of the town, you may be. And it was a Maharaja's palace. And it was out of season, so we would have the things opened out, and we would see everything, the gardens and the home and everything. It was like part of our walk, And just give them a few hours, and the caretaker would be very happy about that. So we wanted to come back, a shortcut. And then go down the driveway and then out of the road, which was about half a mile further from where we were. But then we walked where the water was going through a nala or something. And we realized that beyond it, it was protected. They were fencing by these iron bars. It was a crossbar. And we couldn't cross over it unless we squeezed through there. Or we had to climb it, which was rather difficult. And one or two of us managed to go through the bar, but Mara said, no, I'm not going to be squashed inside and go out the other side. So Goher said, you must climb me and get up on that. And so Mara tried. There she was perched on Goher's shoulder. And she couldn't reach up. So Goher was trying to tell her, you must stand on my head, stand on my head. And Goher was saying, no, I don't want to stand on your head. Meantime, we were on the ground, and I said, Mara, there's a very nice place here. If you push your head this way, and then you turn this way, and you can go on sideways, it'll be all right. So, rather than stand on her head in the end, which Goher was insisting she should do. But I said, Goher, she doesn't want to stand on your head. What do you want? As it is, it would have been a big thing from the climbing up and then going the other way. So the Mara agreed to come down and then squeeze through the other part. And then we got away on the road from there. But she was saying, no, Mara, you have to, while she's Mara on her, she said, no, you must stand on my head. And we were able to go through and then go. Otherwise, it would have meant another 1 mile walk, from having walked that far and then the other way. So that's how we got through it.
Do you have anything that you want to share?
Well, let others who are better and know the excellent speak.
So I just wanted to give that part of it, that there was a lot of fun being with her. And at that time, we didn't think of each other, of anybody as being angels or anything.
I can only say that I am the most loving, gentle, thoughtful sister. He always took care of me. as a child also. So we grew up together, and she was like mother to me, you know. I mean, I was really naughty. She was a good girl. She would correct me, scold me, and always for my betterment. So I can only say that she was so understanding from her very childhood, you know. And she never played any pranks or being naughty. I was always up to some mischief and got into trouble. But she was always very sensible as a child also. So I can only say that she was born to be that. Thank you.
It's great when you meet people that were shaped entirely by our Lord. She exemplified repeatedly, in my experience, personally and in witnessing her with others, those wonderful hands that were like pillows of comfort. The softness was unique. It was obviously tailored by God Himself for Himself and His beloved. And how she had a unique capacity to always perceive the situation from the other's point of view. She always could see what you felt. And she was more aware of that than herself, always. That is my experience.
Yeah. The Mandali, of course, having lived with Baba, were not paying much attention to dates and things like that. But after Baba passed away and all these people started coming, it became important to be accurate, you know. So occasionally, Mera would ask Goher to go out and ask Padri, who was at Meherazad, one of the old Mandali, certain questions about the early days, because when Mera was telling stories, she wanted to be very accurate. And, you know, they had lived through so much, who remembered the dates and times and names and things. So we used to see occasionally Goher arrive at Meherazad, and she and Padri were both doctors for Baba. I mean, he was a homeopath, and she was, you know, Baba's personal Ayurveda, in many ways, many things. But Goher coordinated a lot of the treatment. But so they had a relationship that was very funny. And Goher really enjoyed Padri, and he enjoyed her. And so one day, she was sitting there and she was interviewing him with some questions. She had a little list of questions, and she was sitting on the veranda next to him on a wooden bench. And Padri, I don't know if you all knew Padri, but some of you did, and he was quite a ferocious person, tall and sort of, you know, explicit in what he said. He wasn't shy about expressing himself in certain terms. Sometimes those terms were very colorful also. And Goher was sitting next to him, and she was talking about Silence Day, which is coming up, and she said, now, Padri, she said, now, she looks at her question, she says, now, what was the day that Baba began his silence? What was the date? Padri stops for a minute, and he goes, Goher, are you kidding me? She said, no, it was July 10th. What year was that? And he said, 1925, and don't forget it. So she writes that down. July 10th, she's got that now, 1925. And she said, now, there's a place where Baba started his silence, which you'll all visit on Silence Day, which is called the Eulogies, which we're at Meherazad, where Baba started silence. But there was a little controversy in those days about the name. Some people remember that Baba gave the name Agakuti, and some people thought that Baba had given the name Eulogies, or they'd all agreed or something. Padri hated the name Agakuti because he had been there, and according to him, that's not a name from Baba, it was from somebody else. But poor Goher doesn't know this, or doesn't remember. She walks right into the trap. She says, now, wasn't it in the Agakuti that Baba started his silence? Agakuti? Who says it was called Agakuti? I was there! Were you there? Who told you that? Some idiot from Bombay came down here with his idea of Agakuti. And he goes on and all of a sudden, when he finishes this, he goes, it was the Eulogies, that's what Baba wanted, that's the name, do you understand? And she goes, yeah, yes, and she's right. And then he says to her, and he starts, now he's all revved up, but he's also enjoying the audience, because Goher is getting a little, you know, stirred up here, because Padri's like getting excited. And then he starts some of his beautiful abuses in Urdu and Marathi, and he starts abusing. And Goher, she doesn't say anything. She takes those beautiful little hands and very sweetly and timidly, she puts them right over his mouth. Poppy's eyes are flashing until he calmed down.
Mara made me ask Patty the same question when he was here. She wanted to know the exact minute and what had happened and what led up to the silence and everything. And she wanted to know the exact thing. Because I don't remember it, but she had to do it. And then she also wanted exactly what had happened and when it was, about the time when it rained in Meherazad, when they were having the drought. So I'm sure the Gohar had to, and Padre came in for them too, was a lot of the questions that would, Mara would think over, and he said, the only one to ask is Padre. Let's ask him. And I couldn't say that Mara asked for it. I said, could you tell us what this was and what this was? And we were trying to be very patient with him.
In the earlier years, Goher herself would often go into the bazaar, and she was meticulous to every detail. And her love, because in a way her service was so much dedicated to Baba, there was no self in it, and that poured forth. So there were many of us who were fortunate enough to have opportunities to, quote, help her and go with her. So on many of these occasions, I would notice she would have a whole list of places and people that she would visit. Some of them would be, of course, other medical doctors. It might be medicine suppliers. It might be home visits. It might even be the tailor to make sure that something was specifically made properly for Mara. But what I would notice, and has always remained in my memory, is that wherever she went, and whoever she met, people would come running to her and tell her stories of how she had helped them, or could she help them with this. And no matter how tired she was or whatever the circumstances were, she would totally forget herself and give wholly and solely to that individual, whether it was just someone off the street who knew her because she was the one who had helped at the clinic, his mother-in-law who was now well, or whether it was a medicine supplier, or going to a home to make sure that someone who had been ill was getting along and taking their medicine properly. And in spite of her age and all her needs, she never shirked that. She gave wholly and so fully that Baba's love so shined through her that in itself was the healing that went in every direction, wherever she was, whether it was here at Meherazad to pilgrims or to people in one of the clinics or the doctors, or even someone, like I said many times, even coming out of the rickshaw, people would run up to us and say, "Oh, Dr. Goher, thank you so much. Please, you saved my family's life. You did this and that." And never with any self. You would never even know these things she was responsible for. And if anybody needed anything, she would always say, give them such and such, they need this. And then it would be forgotten. There were nothing of herself, just always in Baba's name. And when they thank her, she'd say, no, don't thank me. This is Baba's prasad to you. This is Baba's love for you. Baba has gotten you well. So that's something that has always struck me, was her selflessness and that always giving it over to Baba.
In the email, people talk about the softness of Goher's hands. And I remember once commenting on it myself, she said, and asking her what it was like to touch Baba. She said, you think my skin is soft, but when I touched Baba, my skin felt so coarse compared to his. And from that, I got a sense of what Baba's skin must have been like, because to us her skin was exquisite.
Janet, what about that Chakrabarti story?
Oh yes, this is the bazaar story that it's carrying on. I used to often go to the bazaar with Goher too, And there came a certain point where she couldn't get out of rickshaws because she'd have aches and pains in her legs and various things. So I would hop out of the rickshaw and go and do her jobs. And she wanted to visit Dr. Chakravarti. She was very fond of the Chakravartis. And this was before they had their new hospital. It was a very old building near Mayher Taylor's, if you know where that is. And they had the first floor, and America the second floor. And you basically had to go up almost a ladder to get up to the hospital itself. So she said, go up and ask Mrs. Chakravarti such and such. So I went up this very steep staircase, and at the top of the staircase was an operating theatre, and I was looking around for Mrs. Chakravarti, and they said, she's operating. And I said, oh. They said, it's all right, go in. So I go in, I open the door, I go in, there's a patient out cold. She's just about to, she's sliced this patient open. She looks up at me over her mask and says yes, and I said, Dr. Goher would like to know so-and-so. So she tells me the answer, and I go back down to Goher in the rickshaw, and she said, did you ask her so-and-so? I said, no. She said, go back up and ask her. Up I go again, I knock on the door. The patient is now having more things done to her. I said, Dr. Goher said such and such, such and such. So Mrs. Chakrabarti replies to that. I go down again. And Goher said, and now go up and ask her this. I go again. I don't know what's going to happen. I get it one more time. And then down I come again, and she sends me back one more time, and they've locked the door to the theatre.
7 children. And it was the ones who had come to Baba who were the ones who were helping the parents. I mean, the mother died while Baba was still with us. But even in that, Baba took a hand in my hand. And Lucy Baba, of course, a lot of people know him. And she would go once a week in the rickshaw. Sometimes she would go after the clinic day. But very often she went on a Friday. So a few times I was having a cough, and I said, let's go to this Nari White, herbal doctor. And so he called me once a week, so I would go with her. And first visit was to her father. Ask how he was, see that all the bills were paid, this was done, that was done. And his table was set for the luncheon time. And he points to, and Kavar's very busy because she has a lot of things on her mind. And the father says, did you see this? He says, yes, what is it? And he says that's a narrow spoon. Yes, so what? She says, I've never used it all the years I've been in Nagara. He said, why not? She says, there's been nothing. You know what the food I get from the Dastuji is from the Agari, the Pasibai temple. They give me bones without anything in there. And Kavar doesn't want to pay much attention. And even then, he had fallen down because he felt giddy and he would stand up to pray for hours. And because he'd gotten lightheaded, he'd fallen down. Doesn't matter if he was bruised or hurt. It was Friday and he had to go. Where Gohar would take him around with her. Like, baby taken in a pram everywhere. And for him, he would wait for these Fridays to be taken around. And then he would, Gohar was busy somewhere. And he would tell me, my child, you get the best things here or the best things there. And then Yusuf, who was driving the car, was an old friend of his. So he would get him something to eat. And her, busy with her things, would say, Papa, what are you eating now? He says, I'm eating this or that. You will get diabetes, don't stop eating all that. But it was Gohar and Kate who really took care of him. Last year. And then that time, even when she went there, she had time to give to the father and see that. And we were coming back from Meherazad, and Mera, who had known Rusi Pop in the earlier times, when with Baba, they went and visited Quetta. And also had Baba did a magic show for them, for all of us in Meherazad when we were there. She always had very fond memories of him and his special love for Baba. And we went and visited him in the hospital. to see how he was. And it was just a few days before he went to Baba. And in the evening that time, it was a cloudy sky, and we looked up in the sky, and there were so many faces of Baba in the sky. And he still looked this one and that one. And then the next day he was ready to come back home, return home, and he died of a heart attack. Thank God for hernia, but he died of a heart attack. And it was only later we realized the significance of the day. It was May 20th, the same day that we was.
When we dropped her body, we could not go. We were here when she was sick in the summer, and then because I was working, we had to leave. College was reopening on 1st of July, so we had to leave. But then we got the message that she dropped the body, so we immediately took the train. And by the time we could come, the funeral was over. So we wanted to come and visit Meherazad, so we requested Erich uncle that could he allow us to go for 10 minutes to meet everybody here. He said, yes, you can go, and just take 10 minutes only. So we took a rickshaw and we both, myself and Gohar, and we came. And when we were at the gate, Merit was there. She asked, you want to meet Goher? She is in the dispensary. So we said, yes. So she took us, and Goher auntie was coming from the dispensary. So then she took our hand and she took us to Mani auntie's room. And she allowed us to pay our respects and whatever we wanted to share with Mani auntie. She allowed us to do everything. And then all of a sudden she looks at me and she said, are you going? And she sat on the chair which was next to Mani auntie's bed. And she sat there and she said, are you going out? I said, no, I will stay with you. So I just stood next to her and she put her head on my shoulder and she wept like anything. So I could realize that all this time she was controlling herself. She was giving courage to everybody. And now she got a chance. She wept like anything. And both of us, he was standing behind her and I was just next to her, and we allowed her to calm down and do whatever she wanted to get comfort. So she wept like anything, and all of a sudden she gets and she goes in the kitchen and tells Katie auntie, bring food for them, bring something hot. And she said, yes, everything is fresh cooked. I said, no, bring that thing, as if we were some special guest. And Katie auntie prepared the plate and everything, and we were asked to take the meals. The food was brought here on the veranda. We took the food and everything, and we could realize that amongst her grief also, she never forgot her responsibility to somebody who has come all the way, and this is lunchtime, whether they have taken lunch or not. So she took every care of us. I'm really very grateful to her that she allowed us to have the whole day here. We came for 10 minutes and we were here for the whole day till the evening.
When I first had prolonged contact with Goher, I had just finished my first year of medical school and used to ride up on a bicycle, work in the clinic with her every day. And as a first year medical student, I knew nothing at all about anything. But she had this incredible capacity to make me feel as if I was the one there teaching her. And she was learning from me, even though I knew absolutely nothing. And it was, I'm very good at picking up pretense. And it was completely genuine. So I actually felt and believed that she was trying to learn from me about how to treat these patients that she had been treating for years up to that point. And that was, to me, is always a central characteristic of her personality and her being, really, was that incredible true humility, who never saw herself as knowing anything or being important in any way, but saw that in others, a way to make them feel their own significance and their own importance to whatever work she was helping them with, participating with.
Dr. Goher is very specific that Ashu should meet Bob Arhans. And she was mentioning about Bob Arhans in such a way that I imagined about him that he's some towering personality, 6 foot long. I had my own imagination because she was stressing so much and in such a way that I had my own imagination about him. And when I saw him, he was not matching. But that proves to his contention that how much she would give importance to whatever in which she was involved.
I have a letter that I'd like to share. It's Goher's letter to Baba in 1938, when she was in Bombay and she was doing her studies and craving to be with Baba. Dearest Baba, loved by one and all, is it that I love you in any way the least? Am I worthy of that great love from you which you have for us all? Baba, my master, why did you not give me, before this, little sense with which I am beginning to understand you now? Baba dear, I'm crying and craving for you, but cannot get you. I am still too impure. The mist from my eyes has not been removed as yet, and I cannot see you in your true form. When shall I see that? What shall I do to see Baba the love? I feel too disheartened when I sit and think over the subject. I wish to leave aside all these worldly duties, pomp and luxury, and take up a corner in solitude where I can perhaps get my Baba. But then, will it be right for me to do that, leaving behind my duty to serve my master, parents, and the deserted? Will I not be called selfish? After becoming a doctor and tending the needy and the sick, will I be serving you, my Baba? Can I be and not be in this world? Baba dear, I am baffled with all these thoughts. Would you not make them all clear for me? Signs, yours forever in humble servitude. We'd like to close with a song that Ted sang for Goher during that Pune trip.
You're here at last.
You're here at last.
Oh, it seems like a long and old night. I'll wait for you. Oh, it seems like a long and lonely night. You will wait for me. You came as Krishna with a flute in your hand. The world was turning at your command. Your gopis, they laughed and they wept and they heard you and await your return. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, I'll wait for you. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, you wait for me. You came as Buddha, the decider of faith. From your side, no man can escape. Your devotees, they swung the karmic wheel as it burned. You and await your return. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, I'll wait for you. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, you'll wait for me. You came as Jesus, beloved Christ one. Upon your forehead there burned the sun. Your disciples you gathered, and for you all they learned was to love you and await your return. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, I'll wait for you. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, you wait for me. You came as Baba, beloved Mayfair. This world is under your constant care. Your lovers came down from the long ancient past of you, and now you're here at last. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, you're here at last. Though it seems like a long and lonely night, you're here at last.